Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. City of Laredo Technical Review Board Ad-Hoc Committee. We're at the City Hall. It's Thursday, June the 21st, and it's, I guess, about 5:15 in the afternoon. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Daniel Waters.
He got stuck in,
Out of town.
yeah, he got stuck at a time.
Mr. Juan Salinas.
He said he was gonna be here, but I guess he's running late.
Mr. Ruben Salinas.
Present.
Mr. Edward Ochoa.
Present.
Mr. Cesar Cantu.
Present.
Mr. Armin Van Loor.
Present.
Mr. Jesus Ruiz.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Item number 3, consideration and approval of the minutes of June the 6th. Everybody has a copy of the minutes.
I had set those minutes ahead of time. Can I have one of these? Yes.
I just noted that where I thought there was one typo.
I'm sure there's a lot of typos. I know on the names I'm probably off. I didn't know.
Richard Tan is
Yeah, it-
K-A-H-N.
I just got corrected that one. What else?
And the one on Gerardo.
Fonseca.
Yeah, he was intending to say that if you put those emitters in a clay, it clogs up the clay. When the clay expands, it clogs up the holes unless you mitigate the soil.
And what did I put?
You put, I gave it to you.
I'll give it back.
You put that high content soil. So I think you were missing the word clay.
Clay. Okay.
High clay content, or high clay soils.
Okay.
It's not that he didn't say it didn't spread out easily. I believe he said it clogs up the holes, like it keeps it from working. So you need to mitigate, which was correct in there. The rest of it was okay. That's the only
So
thing.
what do I add?
Just clay in front of something.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, real quick, on the meeting minute, I guess on the fourth page down at the bottom, it says committee member Van Loor asked Mr. Ria if he could provide a table cost increase over X gallon. I want to say that that recommendation came from staff. I was basically not wanting to touch bases on cost increase as directed by the council. And you had mentioned that on the previous meeting, but I was basing the motion on staff's recommendation. So I want to say for the record that I did not specifically request Mr. Ria to give us a cost increase over X gallons. I don't know, I'm not sure if it just needs to be reworded.
But I think the discussion at that meeting, I guess, and I didn't really pay attention to the motion, but it all centered on, okay, we need, in order for us to develop some kind of table, we need information from the irrigators as to how much water it takes to, and that's kind of, Raul was gonna bring some information on how the irrigators calculate the amount of water. But I think the consensus, whether you made the motion correctly or
Well, what I wanted to point out, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, further up, it says, Mr. Rammer stated that staff and the inspectors are the ones that deal on day-to-day basis, and he agrees the building department needs more staff, and that's where I was basing myself off of the video, and I wanna capture what you wanna communicate, right? Obviously, in agreeing with this, you're saying, you wanted to find out what would be I guess that's what I wanna make sure I get it down.
I'm writing it down so I can make sure that when I say it, I can say it all completely, and it doesn't, there's not 3-4 different versions.
Right. So, so what was that's what I heard word for word on the motion, but, because even Mr. Wire said, I seconded it right away, and I agree with Mr. Vandor, and.
Yeah, I think the general consensus of the committee, correct me if I'm wrong, I think pretty much everybody was here. I think the only one that's missing is Danny. But the general consensus was that if somebody's over watering, that this irrigation, that the recommendation to council is twofold. Number one is let's change the emitters, that are, whether it's the whole front yard or just the right of way, we need to change the emitting devices. And then coupled with, if you're over irrigating, that there be kind of like a self-regulation. It's like I tell my customers when they say, well, what temperature do I put the air conditioner? I said, well, you lower it until, you decide the balance of the temperature and your bill at the end of the month, So if you're wanting to save, more money, sometimes you'll put it at 78 or you put it at 77, 76, and then you have your corresponding bill. So it was kind of like a twofold type deal. And then part of the discussions in there were, that wasn't documented in here, was the issue of, City of San Antonio has some rebates to change the,
Yes.
yeah, that kind of stuff. It wasn't kind of, but, so it was kind of like a twofold deal, is let's change the devices that are in the right of way. And then let's, twofold, number two, then if you're over irrigating that, so that was kind of the motion. I thought that was kind of the motion.
Okay, so do you want me to
But the only-
change the motion?
But the only motion that was, the general thought, but the only motion that was made was for RIA to come back with some kind of recommendation on the number of gallons.
Right, and Roland, it was made earlier where it says, Mr. Ria agree with Ofila to provide figures on the usage of gallons of water used by the irrigation and residential properties. And then so all the discussion ensued, and then I think the motion was information on the irrigation, what it takes for the vegetation, the plants, the landscape, and that RIA's recommendation was to create a matrix and showing the information on the average usage of,
You want a little too fast.
on the average.
I know it's gonna be on the tape, but I'm
Okay.
just, all right, so information on irrigation, comma, what it takes for landscaping, what?
For the landscaping, and then that RIA recommended that he was gonna create a matrix on the average usage of water consumption.
Well, Rio
I know Rio, he said right now he had a study,
Right.
and that study
Did not talk about
did
it.
not include the irrigation. If he wanted, he could go back to the consultant and ask them to run a model on how much irrigation should be, or.
Well, I think that was the
factor.
whole premises of the
Okay.
conversation on the irrigation, so if we're
Yeah,
missing
I
that
think it
information,
was
we can
Danny that
talk.
was adamant that the rates should go up. That's what I remember. Since he's not here.
Yeah, and then he would, on his matrix.
No, Mr. Ria did state that every October the rates are already.
Okay, if you're concerned
But it's
if you're
the-
concerned that the motion included, charging customers more, we can take that off.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, but I think it's important to at least confirm the motion. And
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, we can,
Right.
if that was not your intent, then let's just.
Yeah,
strike
that's
that.
fine, that's
Motion to
fine.
present a table of the number of gallons that it takes, to.
What it takes to irrigate
Correct.
Yeah.
for landscaping.
And
And
if you,
then strike out proposed rate changes. Okay? Is that fine?
That's fine, because we'll make
Okay.
another motion.
Yeah, this is just for the minutes right now, so we can move forward with the actual meeting. Okay, hold on. Is there any other, okay, so let me just, for the record,
Okay.
again, to present, Mr. Ria, to present a table of number of gallons, what it takes for landscaping?
I think he sent me, we're kind of trying to figure out
Water
if
requirements.
people were overwatering.
Water
So
requirements.
After the meeting, I sent them an email, and like I sent you guys an email, so I sent 2 separate emails. And I said, okay, Ria, how many irrigation meters do we have? And, how much are people consuming? And that's what he, so kind of in anticipation of him maybe missing or whatever, he said which is what I got the gist of the motion was, and he's saying that there's about 3,000 meters out there that are residential irrigation meters, and that about 70% of them use more than 20,000 gallons, is what he replied to me on the email. And I think that's what the gist of the motion was. Let's find out how much is, he said, I can tell you, because he said at the meeting, I can tell you how much water is being used, but I don't know, unless the irrigators tell us, I don't know what a yard needs.
Yes.
So to determine whether it's excessive, not excessive, period. So I think the gist of the deal was to get
There's a difference between a requirement and what they're actually using.
Exactly. So
I understand.
the gist was to get, the
What
consumption.
it requires.
Yeah, the consumption. In other words, from Rio, we wanted to know how much are people consuming as far as water is concerned. That was the gist, so that then the committee can bring his deal, and then he can talk to council whether they can, I imagine if it's a hired consultant,
Correct.
somebody's gonna have to spend
Change
money,
order.
yes, spend money to allow them to change the scope of work. So we don't spend too much time.
So this is a long motion now.
So the motion was to present a table showing the consumption of gallons for the residential.
Of gallons.
Yeah.
But you're assuming that all of them are the same size.
No, we're not assuming that. No, what we're asking is, what are people consuming?
How much water is being used?
Right, that was a motion, right? But in the discussion, were you there that day?
Yes.
No, I'm just letting you know, sometimes what gets captured in the minutes is just, because it's too difficult to get all the information in the minutes. So the part of the conversation was, okay, yes, I have the data of how much people are using, but it's meaningless unless I know how to apply it. And that was part of kind of the discussion today.
Before you apply a number that you're looking for, you have to start with a design that's gonna be installed to make sure it's an efficient design. Because most of the
Yeah.
overwatering results from this section gets too much sun, or this or that, or it's got sandy soil. So to compensate for that, we just put across the board, add another 10 minutes.
Okay, but we'll get to that. This is just to correct the minutes. We're gonna go
That's what
back.
we discussed last time.
Yeah.
Are we, is
And
there any other
we're gonna bring back
changes?
that, we're gonna be able, you're gonna.
We're gonna open that item again.
Yeah.
We're gonna open and discuss it in full. I just need to know if there's any other corrections you want me to do on these minutes so that we can move forward with the meeting. Anybody? Bueller?
So there's no other.
Can you roll and do committee member Van Loor asked Mr. Ria if he could provide a table of cost increase over X gallons? I think Orfila and Mr. Ria mentions it up above, so it's kind of repetitive. And I don't remember that comment. I think if we can just strike that
You
whole.
talking about the motion again, or?
No, the discussion. The discussion,
Okay.
right. 'Cause-
Strike out from committee member to gallons.
Yes, please.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
As corrected.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, Chairman Committee Report and Communications.
I have
The only thing on the last city council meeting, Councilman Rodriguez, the council pretty much made a motion to bring up an item as a next item for the TRB when it comes for setbacks. And pretty much the general concept, it's just the concept, not necessarily the fact, the concept about allowing a homeowner to be able to build more. And initial ideas is like maybe allowing the carport to expand a little bit more forward, or the dwellings being built a little bit more back and stuff like that.
The only, if I might add to that, the only problem with reducing, well, that's it is, the setbacks are normally residential, it's 20 feet. If it's a carport, you can go to 50% of the required setback, which is 10 feet.
Yeah.
The only problem is that if you reduce the front setback and people start parking, the rear part of the car will be sticking out into the sidewalk, and it forces people to walk into the street.
Oh, when it comes to the front, it was more on the.
Only for carports, not
only
for, not for.
not-
We don't have to get into the specifics.
But we'll get into it.
Yeah, but we'll just,
Because we have a deadline today.
yes, it's
At
at 1800 hours.
Okay, 7 o'clock. I think with, in preparation for the next meeting, and I don't know if the rest of the committee members feel this way, but if it's possible, if it's not too onerous on staff, if we can get maybe for like the last 2 years, what has the Board of Adjustments been approving as far as exceptions to the setback requirements? And that might give us a basis to make some intelligent decisions.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
What has the BOA?
yeah, in other words, if over the past 2 years,
Projected or approved.
yeah, what's been applied for as far as exceptions, and then so that when we get to the meeting and say, okay, well, this is, 70% of the cases that go before the BOA are in reference to the rear setback or, whatever.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that.
Yeah, and so it was just concept wise, but I know pretty much once we do bring it here, we'll get more.
Yeah, we'll get into the.
We'll get into it,
the
yeah.
detail.
And elaborate on that, so the city council has not, I guess, I wouldn't say authorized, but, gave this committee to look at easements or administrative plans, right?
Right, the only thing was.
Easement setbacks.
It was a dimensional standards, yeah, the motion, the item talked to the dimensional standards as far as, setbacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to make sure that.
That's the only thing that we're charged with.
Okay.
Okay.
As far as other,
Any other communication?
well, just that we're gonna keep this, trying to look, we had voted
We'll
on the
recognize John.
meeting. Yes, we recognize
Yes.
Mr. Salinas here, Juan Salinas. The July the 4th meeting needs to be
Yeah,
changed today to whatever date we want to change it to.
Can we move it to is everybody okay with the next Wednesday?
That would be the 11th.
That way we stay consistent with Wednesdays?
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Because anyways, if we have any action there, it's still, when would be, it's the 2nd and the 16th, so we would go to council on the
There's one on
6th.
the 17th, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, not on the 17th, no, it'd be the 16th. It'd be too soon to go to council. Is everybody good with the 11th?
And the other thing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I should be okay with it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'll be out of town, but I should be fine.
I would say, this committee had voted that it was only gonna be up to 3 meetings to look at this irrigation. So if it doesn't get done today, we would have only the July 11th meeting unless this committee decides to extend it. But that was already
I think we're gonna need another meeting, because I wanna make sure that we get, a good representation of the irrigators, so that everybody has a chance to, voice their concerns, if there's any concerns, and get this thing so that when it goes to council, I mean, if you guys are disagreeing with it, well, that's fine, but at least, we get a chance to, to hear the concerns or whatever, so, and that hopefully we have a good you know, recommendation for the ordinance. So I think at least one more meeting,
Okay.
we're gonna need at least one more meeting.
So
The July.
I would need a motion for the changing of the date to the 11th and an additional meeting.
Nice move.
Moved by Cesar, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
So we're good?
One more meeting, so we're gonna go, that would be the August, first Wednesday of August.
That would be,
That would be the last day that we would refer to this irrigation ordinance. And then we could just bring back the wording of the ordinance, whatever it is that you're wanting to recommend,
yeah, in other words,
so that we can present it to city council.
yeah, once we open up this item, and then we make the recommendations, then we can talk about what will happen on the July 11th meeting.
Got it.
If that's okay.
That's all the communications we have, I mean, I have.
Yeah, that's it for my part.
Then we'll move on, is there any other comments? Anybody want to make a comment? Okay. Any comments other than?
No comments.
Okay. No, okay. Then we'll open item number 5, discussion with possible action regarding the City of Laredo irrigation ordinance, chapter 25-80 through 25-85 of the Code of Ordinances, and section 24-83.10, section 5 of the Land Development Code, and any other matters incident thereto. So we'll open up the item.
Item is open. So, what would be the first topic?
I would want to just mention, did Ria Azul had the opportunity to create the matrix and introduce it or submit it to staff?
I did not receive anything from Mr. Ria Azul, and,
I know he thought the meeting was yesterday.
yes.
Yeah, I saw the email.
So, but I sent out an email to Mr. Ria, and I just asked him, okay, how many irrigation meters are there? And what he replied, he says, there's about 3,000. He said, I have the data, and almost 70% of them use more than 20,000 gallons. And he says, and he continues by saying, now need to know from the irrigators what the optimum use should be
Use more than 20,000 gallons a year, a month, or what?
per month.
Per month.
So in the discussions that we were having before we opened up the item, I was asking, you know, what does that translate to as far as inches of water? So it's like covering 1 inch of water for 30,000.
Well, I would say, what would, let's just do an average. I mean, what would be like the average lot size?
Typical lot, I think they've seen on the past, it's like usually 46 by 110, give or take.
No,
Or,
Grass.
yeah, but that's a lot, and then we'll.
Let's say a lot, and then what
You have
percentage?
the front is 20 feet, so that's 20 by 46, you remove the driveway, that's what, 20 times 20, that's 400.
But I guess the easiest thing to do would be to say 20,000 gallons equates to how many
Oh, perfect, you passed the.
inches of water per square foot. And then, obviously, we can then equate how many square foot does a typical lot have for landscape. But the first thing is to say, how much is 20,000 gallons?
You have to make a lot of
Because
assumptions.
all the lots are different, and all the lots have different plants, and different plants need different
We
water.
already have it
So there's a
for-
lot of different.
But we already have it per square yard. They just
Yeah.
present it to you.
You said 20,000 gallons earlier, that's what's not on the record.
20,000 gallons is
Equates to
about 30,000 square feet.
20,000,
1 inch,
1 inch of water for
30,000 square feet.
30,000
Let's say
square
46
feet.
by 20, bueno, pero quitándole,
But that's
pero.
Just a total.
Well, yeah, that's.
Is that per month or per
No, no,
week?
no, that's per month, it's 20,000 gallons.
yeah.
I know, I was already
I'm
thinking.
going back to that
Like
thing.
I said, the best thing is that why don't we just assign a certain number, and then from there, you know, like for what the area is that you're gonna be covering, and then from there, we can figure out how many gallons it's gonna take to water.
Well, the simplest way to do that is to start with the setbacks, right? Because obviously you can't build past the setbacks, right? So you have the setbacks, everything else usually is landscaped or driveway.
When we're doing the irrigation ordinance, I put kind of like a little non-scientific calculation, And I said, okay, if the typical lot is 55 by 110, let's say, or a 6,000 square foot lot, okay, you need to add right away another 500 square feet, which would be like 55 by 9.5. Okay. So you'd get a total area of about 6,500 square feet that you need to, that's the total surface area, you know, of the lot. From that, you subtract out about 850 square feet of flat work, the sidewalks, driveways, and whatnot. And then let's say that your typical home, and I think I was a little bit conservative in here as far as the size, is 2,200 square feet. Not that the living area is 2,200 square feet, but the impervious area as a result of the home is 2,200 square feet. So then we take off 3,000 for impervious, and we're left with 3,500 to irrigate.
Okay, so let's say 3,500 square feet.
Assuming that's a typical.
That's, I mean, just, and assume that it's just Bermuda grass, or grass, period, because trees and shrubs, I mean, everything has different watering requirements and different things, but I mean, the easiest thing would be, you know, assume that they just have
Grass.
grass, period. Okay, so let's say 30, okay, so then
So,
3,500.
I've got some calculations here, so I was trying to figure out. So on 3,500 square feet, if we talk about that, how much water would that grass need per cycle? Or per day? Let's say you water, or per time that you water it, how
Okay.
much water would that need?
Well, it also depends what time of year it is.
Okay.
Assume the worst month.
But let's just do the worst case scenario. So you would need, got the formula right here that we need. Our watering requirements are the potential evapotranspiration rate for this area during the month of July.
7.6.
7.6, yeah. So that's 7.6, and then you gotta multiply that by, there's a thing called a crop coefficient that you apply to different plants and different grasses and what. And after that, we have this thing called an adjustment factor. And that adjustment factor takes into account like different, like hardscapes, you know, and it also accounts, it accounts for like let's say for example, the type of grass that you have. If you have Bermuda grass and you're figuring this out for Bermuda grass, but you actually, you know, there isn't any information here for San Agustin grass, so you would have to add a little more of an adjustment for more water usage for San Agustin, so you could, you know, add like maybe 25% more water to cover that.
Raul,
The
add
different
that
species.
percentage at the end, just use the general one, and then at the end, because it's an Agustin, add another 10%.
Well, I'm working out the worst case. I'm kind of working out the worst case scenario. You know, like somebody's got San Agustin, it's the worst.
And fruit trees, and what about the soil? And then.
Well, that's not even taking that into account. I mean, there's other things here, but this is like the most water that it's going to use, because if you have clay soil, well, obviously you need to use a little less.
A lot less.
But I mean, this is worst case. You know, you have sandy soil, and you know, worst case scenario would be that.
35.
And then-
feet.
And the slope of the land doesn't make any difference?
Yeah, that's something else that has to be considered. But here we're just looking at it being flat.
Okay.
Okay,
Going
so-
back to this,
To your example, we look at the news.
yeah,
So that, see the zero scape.
the zero scale, yeah.
No, that's good. That's a.
So how many gallons of water would you need per month?
Okay.
It's gonna be different in every single application, unless they're all identical clones. You
Yeah,
can't
if
get,
you got a bigger lot, you need more water.
Yeah.
Smaller lot, less
type
water.
of plants, you get more wind, you get more shade trees, all of that, you take into consideration,
Where you're
type of
facing.
soil, the slope, everything. So, no two are gonna be the same. We'll see where that
Wind
goes.
direction, what your priority is.
I think for us, it would be the easiest thing is how much water per square foot, and then we just say, how much landscaping area do you have? You multiply it by square feet, this is how many gallons you can use, any more than this. If we equate it to a square foot, would it be the easiest way that we can just,
It's assumption.
worst case scenario
You can go per
is
square
this
foot.
type of soil or this type of grass or this type of plant
Mhm.
per square foot, and then when they come in and get a permit for irrigation, I've got 800 square feet of landscaping. Okay, you will only, you can only use X number of gallons,
Well, that's something we're.
and then that way,
Just for the sake of Edward to get a clarification. So what is the number of inches of water? Let's assume it's a static deal, and then and then we'll talk about, well, if it's in shade, not shade, and that kind of stuff. So the static 3,500, the static deal, how many inches of water does it need a month?
It's gonna need 6.85 inches,
7 inches.
7 inches of water
Times the-
per month, yes.
Did you already take into consideration your 20% more or not?
No, that's it, that's with 1.5, actually went a little more, more than 25%.
Okay, so that's
1.5, yeah.
50% more,
Yeah.
7 inches
So it's 7 inches of
Seven.
water
per month.
per month.
Okay,
The-
so then Edward is gonna calculate how many gallons.
Thanks for the perfect.
Was it 3,500?
You have 6 minutes.
No calculator.
HP calculator.
No calculator.
So 7 inches a month, and so let's assume somebody waters, so if you need 7 inches a month, let's assume somebody is watering every other day, right? So they're watering on their Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule or whatever, right? How long is somebody watering?
I mean, it really depends, I mean,
Well,
this is long as
that's
it
what it
gets
requires.
Okay.
7 inches.
So let's say we break up the 7 inches evenly over a month, so then that's 7 inches over the month. So I'm gonna assume that's basically half an inch every watering cycle. So let's say you water 14 times in the month, so you're watering almost every other day. So a half inch depth of water at 3,500 square feet gives us about 150 cubic feet of water. And you multiply that by the 14 cycles per month,
2,000.
150 times 14, 150 times 14, is 2,100 cubic feet per month. And then you convert to 2,100 times 7.48, that gives you about almost 16,000 gallons a month on that usage.
but half-inch water?
Over 3,500 square feet.
Is that the conversion
That
in
doesn't
gallon, Edward? 7.48?
7.48 gallons per cubic foot.
And that's calculating on the right
Okay,
system.
but to keep it alive, with
Yeah.
7 inches?
No, it's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, 7 inches.
That's the worst case, I mean, that's month of July, August, and then, you know, during the spring and the winter, I mean, it drops about there.
Yeah, I mean, that's if all my assumptions are right. but-
On a typical system, what is the amount of minutes that you're supposed to?
It depends really on the layout, I mean, because it depends as to whether you have certain devices like either rotors or you have spray heads, it depends. And also the design, you know, tips the as to how efficient your design
I'm
is.
You
gonna
can't
water-
rely
I'm
on
gonna
that
water
because
14
it
times
says
a
on
month.
the
I've gotta make
book
an assumption.
it
on a
uses
month.
0.75 gallons per minute.
That sounds
No,
really high.
there's a spike in the
I know it sounds kind of high too.
It's gonna throw one
Just seven?
gallon.
7 inches
Throw,
over
for
3,500
example,
square
throw
feet.
up to 18 feet,
How many gallons?
given the right pressure. So
Yeah, no, just forget about the
the
daily.
number you're looking for is very hard to
Just a monthly.
You cannot get an average, you know. You can, but
That's seven.
we're talking about three times
Because I
more
think you were to
consistent
divide it
idea
and
of
multiply it.
pressure regulation, pressure regulation from the
2,000.
valve,
Yeah, about the same.
special
Que sea bien,
pressure,
no quema.
Yeah, I got 2,000.
Yeah,
I got that same.
Yeah,
thing.
I got down to 2,100.
But I think you multiplied by the 7.48. Do you multiply or you divide to get the gallons?
Well, because you have 7 inches.
Yeah, but that's
per
for the
cu-
whole month. not
He has
for the
volume,
day.
he wants to get into.
That's right, but you've got 2,100 cubic feet of water per month that's required. Now you gotta convert your cubic feet to gallons.
You divide
That's
by the
7.48 gallons per cubic foot.
But you divide that number.
Now you multiply it.
Is this to come up with a?
Yeah, for every
penalty
cubic
if you
foot.
pass-
Okay, right,
Seven,
right.
you got it to maintain multiply.
You got 15,708.
It is to charge more if you go over that, or to require a fee up front?
It's a lot of
You're
water.
filling up the average every month. with that
Now,
water.
well, during the month,
Yeah, let's pull it
during
up,
the months
15,
of February,
15,000.
March,
Yeah.
or November, December, I mean, the water
Otherwise-
requirement
Down to what?
to 1/3 of it.
That's a,
It drops
In
down.
the dormant season, it's dropped down to
Yeah.
about a third.
Well, not so much the dormant season, but the cooler weather and less evaporation and less use by plants.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you've got 20,000 gallons average right now per month, and the worst case scenario, I mean, really worst case scenario is 16,000 gallons.
Where's the email again?
No, you
Pretty
can
sure
put it
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're using 20
70% of the people use more than 20.
per month, an average, right?
No, more than,
Yeah, but every month consistently, like average. I mean, the average
Yes.
would be
Yeah,
more than.
yeah.
You gotta figure out whether, out of all of the sprinkler systems that are installed in Laredo, are 70% of them on lots that are 8,000 or 9,000?
Yeah, no, well, that's a different.
Right,
that's a
we're
different-
figuring out for 6,000 square feet.
That's a different question.
yeah, the only way to identify is that is to
But the
equate it back to a square foot.
6,000 is not the average one. 6,000 is a typical San Isidro deal, and it would only be the average if you were taking into account all the 4,200 or 4,600 square foot.
Well, that'd
lots.
even be a lot less.
Yeah, but those guys don't put sprinkler systems in a big concentration, so it kind of seems like you're between like Alexander-sized lots, and which are getting smaller.
No more city that's-
So it's probably like 7,000 or 8,000 square feet, I would imagine.
The people that have irrigation meters normally have larger lots.
Correct. Yeah, the 4,600 square foot guy is not
So that's an
buying an
outlier.
irrigation meter.
Irrigation meters is,
The break-even is too long.
you'll probably go.
Yeah, the ones that use the most water, they're probably gonna want to have the
Well,
irrigation
I
meter
think-
because they're
I think-
trying to control the cost.
So a couple of questions for Rhea, and then we'll ask you to chime in on the deal. Is on those, does his system, can it give him on those 3,000 plus irrigation meters? I know that in the past, and I don't know that they're still doing that today, when I was buying a meter, if it was 6,000 square feet or less, I'd pay X number of dollars. If it was, or 5,999 or less was
Like
400.
the water
Used to-
availability fee.
That-
kind of
that-
sounds-
that went away.
It used to be 400,
That went away.
but he was saying that there had been no change in the rate structure at the last.
No, but what, in the April 1st ordinance, what he did was, it doesn't matter the size of lot. The water availability was based on the square footage of the lot. Not anymore.
That's
Now it doesn't matter what the size of the lot is, they went a flat rate.
Well, not to the builder, but to the,
Developer.
to the rate, but they still charge, whatever the fee that they charge is still based on that. So you can tag them like that, because you have to know. Is that
But
what
he
you're talking
said that
about, to
there was no
identify them
change at the last meeting.
easily?
I read the ordinance and really, that was the ordinance.
Wait a second, I was
No, it's because remember the ordinance had changed, it's the same ordinance that changed the irrigation tap from 1,900 to $800. Remember he had changed the irrigation ordinance where it says now you can get a tap for $800 where it used to be over $2,000 just to get a tap.
Yes.
In that same ordinance, he did away with, depending on the size of lot, the water availability is going to be this much on the.
So basically, the 4,500 square foot lots went from 400.
I don't know what it went to. I just said it went to a flat rate and I never read into more
Well, that's why I
detail.
asked him, and he said that it hadn't changed, and I said, well, I just talked to another builder, and I know that I wrote a check that was a little bit bigger, and he seemed to tell me that it was like $200 more.
We changed on the builder side, not on
Well,
the
it's
developer side.
it's on the consumer side, in other words,
Yeah.
it's when you know it's being qualified.
Right
So I
now,
guess-
They still have it divided up the other way.
Ria's telling
That's
us
what
the
I'm trying to say
irrigation
on
the
16,000,
annexation.
so
Yeah,
at
so they can still
15,000
identify
something,
it.
it's around the same
Like he's got them
ballpark.
segregated. Is that what you're trying to figure out?
Right, what
Time
I'm
all
saying
the
is,
domestic
that in the
sales.
past, the question, the question was that these 3,000 meters, does he have in his system easily and readily available, because they were charging X number of dollars for that meter, right, when they first bought it, does he know what size lot it is? And if the answer is yes, maybe then he can easily give us a report that says,
If he has addresses or geocode in a database, if he just gives me the raw data, or not me, actually whoever's in your all's GIS department also, you can just
merge it.
you merge it with the webcat info, and then you can figure out
how big the lots are. So let's assume that in his system, he can track the lot, right, size? I don't know if it makes it difficult for the city. It says, okay, well, based on your size,
Yeah, man.
you're allowed so many gallons, or based on your size, you're allowed white gallons or whatever, I don't know.
I think there's too many variables involved here to be able to regulate something like that.
The only thing regulated should be like per square foot. You have so many square foot, you're gonna irrigate for the future. You're gonna need so many gallons. You use more gallons than that, then, this happened. If you don't, this is what, it's the simplest way. If that's what you're leading towards, is to equate it, how many gallons per square foot. Worst case scenario, okay, this is your X number of gallons.
Yeah, but the question is, does the system have the capability to do it? That's the big question.
I think you just have to sector off the city, and if there's a couple of guys, if the average in that neighborhood's 8,000 square feet, and there's a couple of guys with 12,000 square foot lot, I mean, you figure the logistics of trying to figure all that and explain it to people, and so everybody can get it. It just seems to me like you kind of, well, okay, those guys, it's some undersized lots, they pay a little bit more, the oversized lots, they get like a freebie. But I would think that if you were going to regulate it like that.
There's a lot of things that even more variables are involved in this issue here, where your house is facing north or south, or east or west. There's just too many variables to be able to regulate something like this. I think we're just
wasting time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the cost.
Well, they can say, I only want to water the front. Then they do the back by themselves. Then how are you gonna control that?
Yeah.
Are you saying just with irrigation?
No, we're not trying to control what system, it's how much water you use.
What's the objective here? What's the idea?
The objective is
To save water for the city,
Water conservation.
water conservation,
Water
or
combination.
erosion of our streets, or what is it?
It's
Erosion of the streets.
It starts with erosion of the streets, exactly, that was our
Which is, to me,
Monday, and it's not the water. Porfiles has a big bad.
I know he does.
He's a big bad. Don't give him your bad. You're a predator, so your eyes are.
You're gonna go around in circles for weeks.
yeah,
It's
you're right.
not gonna solve it, guys.
That's right, I agree.
I mean, how much water when the day you pay my water bill, that's the day you can tell me how much water we irrigate. And again, some people out there, again, I've been doing this for years, where people have issues with their driveways or their sidewalk that are collapsed. I go out there, I said, ma'am, where are your irrigation heads? I don't know. It goes off at night, I never see it. My husband passed away, and sometimes. Again, it's all they don't even come up. A lot of people don't know. And again, I'm not blaming them. That's not, again, water is the problem. Irrigation is the main problem, but we're not gonna stop them from, it's just not gonna happen.
I thought that the last meeting, it was, you and Rio were saying that if you raise the price, that people will use less.
Yeah, that's what.
If we're, being that we X'd out the other option, one thing is the only way you're gonna control people's water is if you raise it. And again,
so that's it.
I'm not for raising any fees.
No, I didn't say
You know,
anybody.
the thing is that either I wanna say pay now or pay later, but the time, the later is already here. The streets are.
I'll tell you what, I know that Mr. Orfila had said in the past, hey, either a French drain system or the equivalent of, the water vapor deal, which was like a vapor barrier or something on the deal, which to me seemed pretty reasonable. But I know that if the goal is to save the consumer money, and it costs, I don't know, $200 a lot to put that in, if you have those high soils, high PI soils and all that, versus all these penalties for overwatering and all that, it's sure gonna cost a lot more than $200, And I know there's multipliers and all that. I'm just saying, if that's the goal, the manpower and the circle, just the whole.
But it's not just the
deal with
water
it.
underneath. It's the surface water is the one that's killing the surface. Because the water gets on the asphalt. You get water on the asphalt.
Yeah, but we're trying to solve the water on the asphalt issue with all this other
That's not a
stuff.
true statement. It's not the water that's getting on the surface, it's the water that's going under. Darn right. That's what's causing the cracking on the top. The
The water
alligator
gets on the
crack.
surface theoretically, if it's enough water.
Yeah,
You get water
It's the water that's coming under.
Water and asphalt in any parking lot.
But at the base,
Monday?
at the base, the top, the asphalt is just to prevent the
It's a
base
sealer.
from
Getting wet.
getting wet. There's a base that's wet, then
then it goes. And then if it's clay, the clay cracks when it dries, and dirt cracks.
And your point is the water is gonna erode it
So what's happening is that the water gets over the curb, it hits dirt, it goes around the dirt, gets on the asphalt, on the edge. You've got a cold joint on the edge between two unlike materials. The water seeps in, and then it starts deteriorating that edge. You know,
have a whole row of grass
Exactly.
Again,
So it's a
we're looking at
surface
3,000 irrigation meters, right? And these are the ones that are causing the erosion or restriction, I don't, you know.
No.
No?
Not everybody has irrigation system. A lot of people have directed connect to. Especially water.
You look
don't
at
have to be an irrigation meter.
3,000 irrigation meters out of how many households in it?
No, but that's just irrigation meters.
75,000.
Lots of businesses.
No, but that's just,
Well, the industrial part. También están.
there's a lot of homes that may not have irrigation meters.
Well, this discussion is not for the water part. I think is probably not necessarily for the irrigators as much as, because there was two components, and there was a component of what do we do to reduce the surface runoff onto the street. The concept was low volume, you know, instead of just like, instead of just calling them drip systems, low volume, low volume irrigation. So can we redirect the conversation, I guess, right now to what can we do or what can we change to keep water from getting onto the street, you know, at least in the you know, in the front yard. I would like to extend it to the whole front yard, like you were saying. It's kind of like you're saying, well, some people don't irrigate the backyards. If we can control the type of emitters in the front yard that produce, you know, that are not gonna, at least, you know, when the wind hits it and it's on the street.
Well, part of the problem is that when somebody breaks a head, they don't find out. When one head breaks down, it lowers the pressure on the whole section, and the spray heads, they're supposed to seal with the pressure. They don't seal, they're just leaking. So you have a bunch of leaks. It's not just one broken head. It affects the whole section, so everything is leaking, so all that is just runs off. You know, so you have to educate the consumer, fix your system. I mean, not that we need more work, but, I mean, that's one of the major problems. Okay, or you drive by and you see it shooting up 12.
Yeah, guys are okay.
And it lands on the street.
And just to
Okay,
remind,
that's
the committee, the scope of this, looking at this ordinance was the design, basically where the heads are gonna be located, the inspection that is being done as far as the ordinance, and then the enforcement.
Right.
Those were the,
And
so
the last
that-
meeting, it got expanded to rate structures, which is fine.
which was part of the discussion of the enforcement. How do you enforce the overwatering issue?
The rate structure.
And that's how it evolved into that rate structure.
Yeah.
But to bring it back in line, these meetings are about where should we put the heads, or what kind of design should be in the front, watering that could potentially go into the right of way, what kind of inspections is required, and what kind of enforcement. Now, the existing ordinance already talks about the inspection and the design and the enforcement. Is that something that this committee was looking?
Is it the ordinance also mentioned, Roland, that you can't have a sprinkler head right along the sidewalk or the curb? And there was, somebody had mentioned if you get a right-of-way permit to put irrigation in that area, that they were putting, through that means, putting irrigation heads along the curbs or sidewalks. And the thing is, we didn't understand why getting a right-of-way permit to put landscaping allowed for that. It should still hold that you cannot have irrigation heads along sidewalks and curbs.
That blanket statement is not conducive to everything. There's streets that need trees and things that don't have lot frontage. So for saying every street can't have irrigation, well, there's some streets that require trees and irrigation systems. that don't have lot frontage.
It only allows the
So
proper-
the ordinance is not just talking about the streets that have houses, it's talking about all streets.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little misleading sometimes.
You have situations where there's a boulevard and there's trees in the island of the
Oh, gotcha. But here we're talking about the residential portion of the ordinance
So they have a copy of the ordinance?
and not the street.
It sort of feels like it contradicts each
Yeah,
other.
but on the residential,
Yeah.
in order to work on a city street or city right away, you need to be a registered contractor with the city.
Right.
Either to dig, an excavator or an irrigator to dig, to be able to do that. So when people go get the permits for that, well, they have to hire somebody who
Yeah,
can do
but
that
what
work.
Benny's saying is that there's parts in the ordinance that allows to put sprinkler heads in the right of ways.
Yes.
And so if you get a right of way permit, because there's areas that allow it, then that's why you get, in residential homes, you get
Section
sprinkler heads in
25-9
right by the
design
curb and sidewalks.
installation.
And that's what's causing
It's
the
on the
deterioration
planning
of the streets.
See, we went through this many years ago. They would not allow us to water from the curb 4 feet or whatever the right of way was. But, you know, which we did. We put the proper size, that's water.
That's the way it is right now.
What most of the people are doing, they're watering in this area, they're not supposed to be in here. You put a 15-foot head here, so you won't get a little dry triangle. That goes into the street.
Yeah, so he's gonna bring up section 25-90, which is the design and installation minimum requirements. That's the ordinance, and I was hoping that you guys, in other words, had a copy of that ordinance, and y'all are probably familiar with it, of where the location of the heads can be, and that kind of stuff, right? (25-90).
Just tell me where you want me to stop. It's up on the screen.
Okay, there was a section 2, at least mine says, C spacing 2. Okay, new irrigation systems shall not utilize above-ground spray emission devices in landscapes that are less than 48 inches, not including the impervious surfaces, in either length or width, and which contain impervious pedestrian or vehicular traffic surfaces along 2 or more perimeters. If pop-up sprays or rotary sprinkler heads are used in the new irrigation system, the sprinkler heads must direct flow away from any adjacent service and shall not be installed closer than 4 inches from a hard cape. Is that what it says, hard cape? Or is that should be scape? Yeah, it's a typo. Such as, but not limited to, a building foundation, fence, concrete, asphalt, pavers, or stones set with mortar. Yeah, the word streets in there. So, in here, it's talking about pop-up sprays.
If you look at number 4.
Yes, but the big issue here is we've got pop-up sprays, right? In other words, if pop-up sprays or rotary sprinklers are used, in other words, so do we?
But that's like for, any area, even within, within, let's say, a patio area or what have you. I mean, if you have a 48-inch planting bed, you need to use some type of low volume in there, not the sprays, because the sprays will go over that area.
Okay.
So understanding the 48 inches is the 4-foot sidewalk.
No, that's something different there. No, that's us as irrigators. If you have an area, a planter bed area, that is less than 48 inches wide, we cannot use spray heads in there. We have to use drip or low volume in there, because not the way that our spray heads are designed, they go beyond 48 inches.
So, okay, so this is a new irrigation shall not utilize in landscaping that are less than 48 inches. So in other words, if your space that you're gonna irrigate is less than
48 inches, you have to use low volume irrigation, not spray heads.
So like, for example, a side setback. we've got 5 feet on a side setback.
Mhm.
So,
If it's less than if it's less than 48 inches, you gotta use low volume. It's gotta be drip or low volume, no spray head.
Right, but number
Okay.
4
Yeah,
says
yeah,
specifically,
Yeah, that, you have to be.
within the right of way, the first 48 inches, that's from back of curb, they're talking about this place where the sidewalk is.
Right.
Because right behind the curb is a sidewalk, that's a 4-foot sidewalk. That's different than the other 48 inches.
But 48 inches from back of curb allows you to
It's
put
at the
a sprinkler
sidewalk.
head at the back of curb. I mean, at the sidewalk.
At the sidewalk,
the sidewalks are
but facing
But they must be.
Sidewalks, in residential, yes.
Yeah, 4 feet.
4 feet.
4 feet, yeah.
to 4 feet.
So basically, if the typical subdivision today is we have curb, sidewalk,
Yes.
Yes.
which is the preferred, in my opinion, that's kind of like the preferred, because that keeps the water having to travel a lot further before it gets to the base. They have to travel down and then 4 feet across before it gets underneath the,
So if there's no sidewalk, we put a head at 4.5 feet.
But no, if there's no sidewalk, it has to be drip system.
you guys don't have any markers, right?
You're saying you can't install
Yeah,
spray,
yeah.
This is the
you can't
ordinance.
spray that way?
No,
If you have the back of curb, the first 48 inches, you
Yeah.
shouldn't use
any irrigation system.
irrigation. If you're doing any, it should be drip irrigation, it says here, except for
Okay,
drip.
so nobody's gonna be allowed to spray towards it, towards the curb, that's what you're saying?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, but what happens, you put it 5 feet, an extra foot.
But you got, why would you spray towards the curb?
Yeah, in other words, you guys don't have any markers in here, but if you
Yeah,
have.
he's looking for one.
In other words, if
Like I
you-
said, we went through this many years ago,
Yeah.
and what we did, we would put the heads at 4.5, 5 feet. The head is supposed to shoot 4 feet, 15 feet toward each side. But you get a spike in the water pressure, and it shoots 6, 7 feet. And you get a gardener that breaks a head, you'll go buy any head, put a 15-footer on it.
So the question is,
Are you gonna require drip on those 4 feet?
See,
or
but that's
can you
different,
spray?
because he's talking about spray, that's talking about no irrigation system. They're talking about not putting a sprinkler head, so to speak, within 48
no, I'm
inches.
saying a drip system.
Unless it's
not-
a drip system, yeah.
Yeah, they're allowing a drip system.
But nowadays you have a sidewalk there. I mean, we're talking about for new construction now essentially, right? 'Cause so nowadays you got a sidewalk in the first 4 feet anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
my
kind
whole-
of,
That's my whole point. In other words, maybe what we should be doing is that those, in other words, instead of talking about the right of way, that push it out to the property
to the property line.
Exactly. In other words, eliminate, because you drive by and
Yes.
you get any kind of wind,
Yeah, it goes the other way.
y ya está, ¿cómo se llama? It's on the,
So then how do you water what's in the right of way?
We'll see,
You just face it this way, but it has to start 4 feet that way, the
Right.
same
Right.
one is there?
Or you do a drip it.
I don't think I'd wanna have the sprinkler heads an additional 4.5 feet and then spraying towards the sidewalk, but you're just gonna push the
so
problem more
not spray anything towards the whole issue is not
Yeah.
spray anything towards the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then how do
But
you
then
water
the
that
concern,
other section?
but then Johnny's concern is, how do you water that section?
Well, that's a question for these guys.
See, that, I
You
mean,
can't do
that's
it.
where drip or low volume comes into.
Yeah. you
Right,
can put
but
the
there should
water.
be a drip
Yeah.
So there's no.
So you just won't have any grass there?
No, so, but he's trying to,
We've been mentioning San Isidro.
so he's saying, here's your typical lot.
Okay, so we've got,
San Isidro.
there's a street, there's a
It's only
sidewalk.
for subdivisions
See,
with PI over
here-
20,
here's what-
I'm guessing?
See that sidewalk that has zero scape?
Yeah,
Or it isn't
See
affected?
that has zero scape?
all the areas.
It's a double frontage, the street above,
Shit.
you got rocks there, right? And it's just maybe a little bit of plants, but there's no grass on that side.
So, okay, well, that's,
And on this side, the back of curb, you have your 48 inches of sidewalk, and then you have the
can you
rest.
zoom in a little bit more into that
¿Da
front?
Crepúsculo?
Yes.
The front. Okay, what, okay,
That says Bluff Oak Drive.
What do you do with that little piece?
okay, my question is, what can we do on that front yard? What can we do in that front yard so we don't, and still have turf grass? Let's do an extreme situation. Because we're going to one extreme like French drains. That's an extreme.
Oh, you want a solution?
No, hold on. I'm asking what can be done as far as an irrigation system on that front yard.
Here,
No, the whole front
Oh,
yard.
this.
And it was extended all the way to the front, and it was a front yard. We have one requirement for the front yard and one requirement on the backyard unless it's a double frontage lot. Right, if we have a double frontage lot, we need to treat the backyard like the front yard. So what can be done in that front to irrigate that front lot without having to have a whole bunch of spray heads? So when the wind comes,
Put one in the middle.
it broke, no spray heads. Can it be done or it can't be done?
I saw the drip line installed in San Antonio, because I lived over there 9 years. And it wasn't very popular because when the hot months came in, you could see the line
Yeah.
on the
What do you
grass.
mean you can see the light?
the grass was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much.
Yeah, you see it.
Oh,
would
that's
see
the only
green.
part that was green.
Yeah, you would see green and then a lighter
Checker.
green in the middle. So you could actually see where the system was. And it looked pretty nasty.
Can I know volume?
Some people don't like
Can I
it.
use-
Well, there's actually,
What are the options that we can have in there?
if, the problem is the overspray, right,
Yes.
that it sprays away. There are devices now that give you, that minimize that overspray. There are spray heads, types of spray heads that, or not spray heads, type of heads that shoot out like a stream, you know. It's a heavier droplet.
The one that,
The ones that
pictures of?
they showed you, yes. And that reduces the misting and the blow up, you
The
know.
one that's called low volume?
Low volume. Go ahead.
Yeah, that reduces the, you know, the or not so much the overspraying, but it reduces the runoff off of the spray head.
Unless you just overwater there,
Yeah, I mean, because
you
this,
produce more water. It
those particular nozzles shoot a heavier droplet of water, so it's not carried away by the wind as much, and it does minimize that wind factor, what we call the wind factor.
But it won't,
Of-
but
of-
but it won't minimize,
Will
will
what?
anything minimize the waste factor?
This is what.
Yeah, if you have it on more minutes than it
Yeah,
should.
put the volume off, I guess. They don't wanna hear my voice in there. Take the volume off.
I don't think we have a volume.
There you go.
See, that's a.
So let's start again.
Huh?
That's a repair problem.
No, these are new types of bubblers, they're called pressure compensating nozzles. I mean, we're using those, that's a low volume irrigation there for
We're talking about a
shrubs.
solution for
Yeah,
grass.
but again,
Yeah.
There's stuff like that for grass.
This technique's for xeriscape.
Yeah.
Jake, but take a look at that example there, how the water is
Stop
getting
it.
waterlogged there.
Yeah.
It should be going down into the ground,
Yeah,
you know, but we're getting too much water there. Yeah.
you're watering too fast.
Or we left it too long, because we're taking pictures of it. I don't know how much time is on there. How much time
We
is
leave them
on?
on for 2 minutes, and it's enough to apply the,
See, those plants don't even require water.
well, initially they do, I mean, they're newly planted and.
There is a
and-
technique on plants.
and-
Land development.
We'll get into that after we resolve this problem.
So are there any emitters other than spray heads that can address the grass?
In the little strip where the right of way is.
I'm just saying in general. Whether it gets applied to the little strip or the whole front yard.
But that's the thing, Mr. Chair, at least we get them out of the right of way and we get them into the 48 inches, whether to do the low volume or a drip edge. That's for them to figure out, you know.
Well, you just say you just put 15 foot, and then it's the same deal, it just pushes
Yeah,
it back a little
it's
bit.
not gonna.
But it's 4 foot further back.
It's all gonna base upon the amount of water that they throw, the timing. It's all, you can change the heads, put your drips, it's all in the amount of water that they throw.
I tell you what I
That's the
overwater,
bottom line.
and what I noticed is mine drips off, but it doesn't drip off because of the spray. Yeah, the wind jacks it around, but it's because I got a little bit of slope and probably a lot of clay. So it just, and there's no topsoil that probably went on beforehand, they just slapped it down on the compacted deal. So the water just kind of just goes down.
Onto the street.
Yeah.
To the sidewalk.
I could give my address.
Oh, that's fine, they're all like that.
Yeah, but that's a simple solution. Instead of watering one time, 15, 20 minutes, water 2 or 3 times that the water saturate.
Yes, it is.
And it will not
Yeah.
Well, Roland, right now, the current ordinance says 48 inches, no, from the sidewalk and curb. Why don't we look at what the verbiage says for the right-of-way and where they're getting permission to put sprinkler heads in the right-of-way and see what we can do about that. Man, at least we accomplished something significant. Maybe not all the
Well,
problems.
it was mentioned last time that if you get a right-of-way permit, you're able to put irrigation lines on the right-of-way.
That's for like boulevards and all that.
But
No, it's for
why would we
residential.
want to do that in residential lots? I guess that's the first question.
Because some lots go, take the grass all the way to the curb, some lots.
Why would we want that grass that goes all the way to the front?
But that's on the old subdivisions or?
Yeah,
all
old subdivisions, old areas, they have all of that.
And
But
you
not
can
the
do
new
it-
subdivisions, right?
No, not the new subdivisions, they require a sidewalk.
Yeah, but that same
But-
problem happens in commercial too. You get a right-of-way permit and you run your landscape all the way to the back of the curb or sidewalk.
The only place I would see that it's in the
the.
eastern or western division is whenever they R3 and they come in for a fourplex or a few apartments that they need some kind of landscaping and it's commercial. That's the only place I would see where they may
You get a zero skip
request
right away.
irrigation system or landscaping.
Can we see the ordinance where it says, no, the ordinance on the right-of-way landscape? Is there, when you get a right-of-way permit to put landscape, is there a separate ordinance or
That should be.
Okay.
No, this is the ordinance.
So even if you get a right-of-way permit, there should not be a sprinkler head right by the sidewalk?
The right-of-way ordinance basically talks about whoever works within the city public right-of-way needs to be certified, needs to be registered, needs
It's
to.
traffic safety requirements.
Yes. And whoever works, whether you're doing irrigation, whether you're doing a sidewalk, whether you're doing a driveway, whatever you're doing within the right-of-way, you have to have a permit. So basically it says, you're working in the right-of-way, so they're interpreting the irrigation as, I wanna put some over there, oh, I'm working in the right-of-way, I gotta get a right-of-way permit.
I thought they changed that.
May I ask you a question? Can you put up again the aerial, the Google or whatever you're doing? So right now, on the, I guess what happens is you're putting a spray head right next to the sidewalk, pointing it from the sidewalk, or because you have to follow that.
Can you accomplish by putting it up here at the property line?
Right.
Instead of getting closer, can the irrigator still accomplish this grass to stay green and survive by not putting them here, but putting them in the property?
The question that I was gonna ask.
Spray towards the curb, and that's gonna fluctuate with the water pressure, the type of head you use, whatever they break, they don't replace it what we put in.
What's the current design? Let's ask just a simple question. What's the current design? You're irrigating basically 6 feet in there, so it's 9 minus 4, 5.5 feet. Basically is what's getting irrigated in there between the back of the sidewalk to the blue line.
To the blue line?
Okay, so how do you design your system?
Okay, on the ends, how far is it from the blue line to the curb?
It's
5.5 feet.
Okay, at the end, you would put 2 heads that shoot 2 feet for each side, they're supposed to, they don't necessarily do that. They shoot 15 feet forward, and then along the sidewalk.
So you've got here, you're shooting it that way, or no?
No.
Yes.
Well, like, if we have to water only from the sidewalk to the blue line,
Uh-huh.
we would probably put them on the inside property, watering towards the curb.
So you wouldn't put anything against the
The
curb?
only reason to put some along that curb is they're 15 footers watering the rest of the yard, not just that blue line.
That's how it's currently happening.
Right, yeah, because like on my home,
But
I've got I'm in a side yard. In other words, I've got a home on the corner, right? So I've got some sprinkler heads that are going from here to the fence, and I've got some sprinkler heads that are going from the fence to the sidewalk. And what I was told at the last meeting is that it gives you a certain volume. It says, okay, you've got 5 gallons, 3 gallons, 2 gallons, 1 gallon, and then so you need the other one that says, that overlaps, and you got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or whatever. I don't remember, but just, if I remember correctly, it was like heavier at the head, less, so that we're overlapping.
We're supposed to overlap, but again, it depends on what you're using, because like on that strip you want to water,
Yes.
you put one on each end, and every 15 foot you put one head. That's gonna water 4 foot forward, 15 towards each side. Those particular heads drop more water than they say, because I stopped doing that many years ago. I would put them on both sides, and that would saturate in a few minutes. So you can't follow what that book tells you, because it's different out in the field with the fluctuation of the water. That head is gonna dump a lot more water. It's supposed to dump 1.8 gallons per minute. It will dump 2.5, 3 gallons. Because it'll flood.
Actually, the guy in the corner, look at all he has to water in front in the corner.
You wanted a corner.
You pay extra for water. If he buys from me, he has to pay extra for the corner.
Well, it's in that particular.
Monday? So, okay, so what's happening right now, you're saying every 15 feet?
Yeah.
You got a sprinkler head here?
That way.
Then,
Yeah, if we're gonna water past the blue line, yes, they're not necessarily 15 feet. We divide, we measure it and we divide, the heads only come in certain sizes, 10, 12, 15, 18 footers.
so you don't put any sprinkler heads here?
You would integrate that with the front yard, it wouldn't be separate, it would be one big.
Yeah, it's one system, right?
Yeah,
You don't see the blue line.
No, we don't, no, it's just, you know.
But we want to eliminate water being, how do we do that while still maintaining this to survive?
See, but that's where it's kind of decked up, because if you put your sprinkler heads here along the sidewalk or by the driveway, you have people that run them over, you have people that kick them. One of them busts and one of them breaks. Where is it going to throw water? It's not going to throw water on your property. It's going to throw water here on the sidewalk, and that's where you have the problem.
Unless you have this whole thing,
Okay,
drip
so
irrigation,
how do you put your
That's one
sprinkler
option.
heads?
right?
That's one option.
But that was, one of the irrigators was again, only saying drip irrigations here in the front.
Exactly.
So we want to give them options.
In the front, you're talking between the sidewalk and the property line.
Well, I'm just saying, it's integrated, they don't,
Well, right now they don't differentiate, but if you differentiate it in the deal, then you have to.
No call.
That's the front, that's the sidewalk? We gotta irrigate that front part.
And what's the length from here to here?
Let's say it's 50 feet. Or divided by 15, 45 feet.
I just don't understand why we're doing it from sidewalk in, why don't we do it from the house out? Is there any reason why we don't do that? So you go from, oh, but then you have the overlap, so you're gonna do it anyways.
So it doesn't spray this.
You don't want to spray towards the
How about
street,
if you
because
put it on
if
the
you
side?
overspray,
Yeah, but if you overspray, you're gonna overspray 1 gallon, 2 gallons. If you put your sprinkler head closer to the sidewalk and the street and that busts or something happens, you're gonna get it worse. It's gonna be worse.
and you have a party and somebody drives over the sidewalk, and
Because I'm always
wheel
pushing
fire
water.
breaks the head.
My wife does it all the time, drives me crazy.
Pushing it.
Don't do
On one
it.
side.
that whenever you have, let's say, he was talking about how when you have a drip irrigation system, you'll have a green patch and then a light green patch and then a green patch. Can this all be one drip irrigation line of the 5.5 feet cover that, could that strip be that wide, 5.5 feet or no? Is it 2 feet wide?
The way that you lay out the drip irrigation for turf, I mean, it has to be
Every
12 in grids, yeah. 12 feet. I mean,
12 inches.
That's it, 12 inches.
So you would literally have to put from the back of the sidewalk, 12 inches a line, and then another 12 inches, another line.
12.
Just snake it,
Yeah.
every 12 inches. That's the only way.
That's
Is that more expensive?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's using the drip, the hose, goes underground. You have to go in there and excavate all that, put in some soil. I mean, the best bet would be not allow anybody to water anything in the right of way, period. Just from your property line in. I mean, from the blue line of the sidewalk, it's rock or hardscape.
Igual estás hablando de un error. Exactly. I'm just telling you. If you have too much, if you have too much, like, if you have like too much concrete, I can tell you, we did it before one time, we got. Working with that.
Like base wing.
For P&Z. Yeah, like, I mean, because there's no spray heads or something.
Pones uno,
It was out-
dos, tres, cuatro y otro.
Or P&Z, I guess.
Cinco cabezas acomodadas para acá.
So
Today. He's gonna do like a little sketch of what they would do.
But I mean,
Would it be as simple as just, would it be as simple as just recommending low volume irrigation in the front? And that provides.
I would, yes.
because it doesn't necessarily mean just drip. It could mean other.
Yeah, for example, those, like I mentioned, in order to reduce that water flying or the wind factor is by using
Anything in that low volume. Low volume is you'll stream out
That reduces, we can create a red.
I don't think we can create an ordinance or create a design that would completely eliminate water, but I think we can do our best to reduce it, and there's other measures that we can also do, enforcement, whatever, to encourage reduction. I think that's just one small piece. I don't know.
It's a good point, and I hope,
Laredo, you have.
there's all these
Conservation.
It's really a conservation effort.
that's a good point, and
It might be as simple as just saying require.
Many are very quiet.
Require low volume irrigation. Okay, that will all irrigators like yourself to have to design within those parameters, right?
Exactly.
And it's not really handcuffing you in your design, it's just making you focus on a different option. You know, that's kind of what I'm thinking from that perspective.
Okay, while he's doing that deal, so in other words, what Edward's saying is low volume irrigation in the front yard. Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
and let the designer.
Okay, so I still me quedé con el piquete at the last meeting about this issue of the consumer bypassing the irrigation ordinance. If they come in, they say, I already installed my irrigation system, I need my meter. Or what's the
Or that
procedure?
or that it existed, the irrigations exist, they don't have a meter for it and they don't have a backflow for it.
Yeah.
That's when they come in and the customer cannot install any of that, it has to be done by a licensed irrigator or a licensed plumber.
But I thought I heard at the last meeting that we are giving them the meter.
Yeah, we are, but only through a master plumber or a licensed irrigator.
After the fact that the irrigation,
And
was
after the
done.
fact that the irrigation has already been
System.
put in, they'll call, and the irrigator will call me, it's existing, he'll bring me a plan saying irrigation existing. I still go out there and check it out.
yeah,
Make sure that it's
but that
old.
design,
No. That's the customer's responsibility on that. But the irrigator now is gonna turn around and go, okay, I need to test your whole system and make sure that you're in compliance. Yeah, I would figure that would be the best way to go ahead and take it.
No, but that's not happening. That's, the question is, yes, me quedé con el piquete. In other words, what's the procedure, we're not talking about what the procedure is gonna be tomorrow.
Mhm.
In other words, I come in, Jesus Reese, and I say, I need a meter, I already have my system in.
I won't give you a permit, I won't give you a permit. You need to call your irrigator or a licensed plumber in order for them to come and get it.
Yeah.
Because the utility department will not give you a meter without a permit from a licensed contractor,
So.
Even if it's your homestead?
even if it's your homestead. Only
I
because the backflow, they
misunderstood
cannot
the
install
last
backflows themselves.
Benny,
They cannot-
that goes back to because they gotta protect the clean water supply. So if you have an irrigation system, you have stagnant water that could potentially contaminate the clean water supply. So by state requirement, if you have an irrigation system, you must have a backflow preventer.
Because the state always gives
Doesn't
people
matter.
I'm sorry, Benny.
like building permits,
Benny.
electrical permits.
You are correct.
Plumbing,
No,
but that's not for
No,
irrigation.
Benny's correct, Benny's correct. You can do an irrigation as a homeowner, yes.
It
But after the
it had to
backflow
be a
and the
homestead.
meter,
It's 26
but the
gallons per
backflow and the
minute.
meter cannot be issued.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's the only thing, but the homeowner can do their own irrigation.
Right. But if they do,
Electrical.
or they say they do, and you have an irrigation system, then they come to me, Roland, I need a meter. I get them all the
Then
time.
it's when you catch them.
That's when I say, I need your irrigator or your plumber to come in and apply for
Yeah.
irrigation.
Correct.
They have to first register the backflow preventer
Yeah.
with the utility department division with Ms. Adriana Vela.
Mhm.
Then they send me, the backflow preventer has been registered at so-and-so address. Once it's registered, I allow the irrigation, the tap, whether it's a T connection or the new tap to be installed either by utilities or a right-of-way contractor to put a line for the irrigation meter. Then once the backflow's been tested on it, they put the meter on there. But nowhere in there, do I see where that existing irrigation system met its compliance.
No, here again. If the homeowner, you, comes over and tells me, my irrigation already exists, okay, we're not gonna tell you that you have to get into compliance because it's already been in existence. But the minute that you call your irrigator's gonna know already that they have to be into compliance to see how much water they're watering.
Yes, but Mr. Guerrero, what I'm saying is, customers know that loophole. And they say, let me go do it today, and I'll go ask for the meter next week. It's already existing.
You know, I understand that, but here again, the consumer is the one who's doing what they want to do. But the contractor is always going to turn around and know the rules and regulations. And I'm going to turn around and tell you, sir, I need to check your system also to see how much water you're using on every station. If you're using 20 minutes a day, then we know that that system is not working appropriately. And the contractors are gonna be able to do that. Just like we do it with, just like we do it for the pool contractors. Whenever they're gonna replaster a pool, they need to bring it all up to code. All of it has to come up to code because they cannot have just anything on there.
So I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. If I have my own irrigation system that I installed over the weekend, it's just to make an assumption, and then I come to the city and I say, I want an irrigation meter for the system, then the city tells them you need an irrigator and a licensed plumber for a permit for the, okay, so they talk to, Johnny's an irrigator. What does Johnny have to do in order to get the permit?
Well, Johnny is the licensed irrigator, they say?
Well, you're telling me that I need to get a licensed irrigator.
Yeah, the licensed irrigator is gonna tell you, that I need to do a design for you.
But the system's already in place.
Okay, but the design is gonna come in as already existing.
As built.
Yes, as built already. He had nothing, the irrigator had nothing to do with it. It was the homeowner who did that.
Okay.
What was checked for compliance?
But it was checked for compliance.
For compliance,
Yeah,
they
but-
have to check it for compliance.
That's the thing with the chart, that's another loophole, because at the end of the day.
What he's saying is that the irrigator is certifying that it's in compliance.
Right, but it's certified because he's an licensed irrigator, not that it's actually the system's in compliance.
No, he said that the system was in compliance.
And what I'm trying to say is, that he's not checking it. He's not checking it. You're assuming because a licensed irrigator came in that it's working. He's not checking it.
Correct.
Let me ask you a
Okay,
question.
so going back to that deal, the ordinance has exemptions, right? The ordinance has some exemptions.
Yes.
What are the exemptions on the,
We can put them on the screen. What section are you referring to?
exemptions?
Do all irrigators
It's,
request a
section-
meter for the irrigation, or
No.
can it apply into
It's
the
up to the owner.
house meter?
You can tie it to the house meter.
What percentage would you say go with the
There's 3,000 meters.
It's growing, the percentage is growing because
The water is going
the
up.
water rates are going up. It's by
It
what?
was before they raised the price.
And I saw a major change from, I think, 14 to 15, 2014 to 2015, when the amount of irrigation meters that people were just coming in. And I think I ran a report and I sent only 15, 16, 17, and then currently up to 2018. How many irrigation permits were issued? Residential and commercial.
You know what, to kill that loophole that we're talking about, even this at the end of the paragraph, sorry for cutting you. It says the city at any point adopt the more stringent requirements for homeowner and property owner.
So what you say, 50%
Irrigation system.
have irrigation meter
We have that loophole, that might have to be where,
have irrigation.
that's not even the homeowner. Can do
City
anything.
may at any point adopt more stringent requirements for
Yeah.
home.
And that was
Yeah, but
before they
that's
raised
the thing, like,
I've done it.
you guys,
Since they raised it.
I don't know how many permits you're about to mention that are coming in, more permits are being requested, but who's actually doing the inspection to adopt the more stringent
Without-
requirements?
Yeah, and but what I'm getting at, to avoid that loophole, maybe just make it stricter in a sense, dude, everything has to be done by the plumber inspector.
For every system.
Or irrigator, for the
Whether it's.
Yeah. The law of
If
irrigation.
he sure has to certify it or something?
Yeah,
Or is it
get
just a
get rid
plan?
of that loophole of.
Yes,
homeowner.
now that state, the state deal where it allows the homeowners to do it, that's a standard. The city can always be more stringent. They would have to adopt it by ordinance. They could always be more
But
stringent.
in that one, it says,
No,
it
wait.
says specific.
Wait, no.
The other way around. If the state allows it, then the city cannot overrule the state, because the city gets its power from the state.
No, I know.
The state doesn't get the power from the city, so.
No, I understand that, but you can always be more stringent. As long as you're more stringent than the state, you're okay.
No.
And
That's the
so,
minimum.
Porque hizo cuadros.
right, this is the minimum. The state says, oh, we allow the homeowners. But if the city already says, you know what, we're having a lot of issues with this, we want to regulate this, we want to have a local ordinance
They have a square
to
foot,
address
they
it.
shoot 4
I'm not saying that the city wants to,
And 15.
I'm just saying-
Inside.
The current
the
code
current
allows-
ordinance already says, the city at any point,
No, there's so
The
many.
the intention, Benny, is to get the irrigation
What does that
system
mean?
to be operating.
No, no, I-
And because the owner is able to
Well, we'd have
hire
to-
XYZ contractor, it's not licensed, it's not working the way it should. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're not working the way
I'm
it
just saying,
should.
if city council would, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that they do.
You know, so
If they would wanna look at, there's all these loopholes that
Go to Lake City.
people are installing their own irrigation systems, and they're not being
Put this
regulated,
head here.
or they're not
water-
complying, because they may not be, they may not be licensed. They come in and says it already exists, and the city says, you know what, if we see an issue with it, or see a problem, maybe we should look at it and address it. They could, I think, I don't know. You don't think so?
I don't know, I don't know, I think maybe the legal department should look at that.
Let me ask you a question. Is it, and I know I discussed this with, or I mentioned, I threw it out to Raul just to, you know, I don't know if he agreed with me or disagreed with me. But does the irrigation community have a concern with, at the point of the final, saying, I have complied with the, you know, with my design, and it meets the ordinance, you know, requirements, I'm submitting for a final, whether the city decides that they go and inspect, or the city decides that they don't have the resources to inspect, but that you did a design, and you said, okay, I'm certifying that what I installed out there in the field meets, you know, complies with what I submitted, complies with what I submitted to the city, except for maybe I modified these 3 things when I got into the field, and here's my, you know, my request for final. And then that same form, if somebody requests, in other words, if you're sending the consumer, hey, find yourself an irrigator, that irrigator would do the same thing on their system and tell them, well, no, I'm not willing to sign because it's not in compliance.
Yeah, that's.
So you gotta keep in mind, Mr. Reed,
liability.
that one child had mentioned last time, usually the irrigation system comes in after the building permit, because they usually don't bring it at the building permit. So when you're asking for that, the city does check for like, oh yeah, does it pass the plumbing final, does it pass the electrical final? Yeah, they do a final, but the irrigation system is lacking, is still, because it's not a requirement, it's, so then it comes in after the fact.
They don't install.
They already have a seal.
I can tell you that if it's new construction, and my homeowner's paying me, you know, $2,500, $1,500, or paying, they're gonna want it before the grass is laid. So, you know, new construction, 9 out of 10 times, it's gonna be there, and in fact, like I hadn't done irrigation systems in like forever, and I was wanting to get the meter ahead of time, and I said, oh no, you're going at $2,000, you call them for it.
No, nowadays, utilities has a policy, they will not issue you an irrigation meter until you establish a domestic account. In other words, what they're doing is, they're doing it at the same time, and they'll just connect it right after the domestic meter, and then right away ask for the other, and then just disconnect it from the domestic and connect it to the new.
So why are they doing that?
Utilities, that's the policy they have now. You have to have a domestic account. Now, when they come, and I always say, what happens when they come in together? Well, we need to, that's their policy, I don't.
But when you're getting, but we have a domestic meter when we get the, because we get the meter before we deliver the home.
Yeah, you'll get a domestic meter, I'm not saying you're not.
But I'm building a home in order for me to be able to, you know, deliver my home. I mean, I don't give my homeowners a home without a water meter. I mean, I don't know that any builders are doing that.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about a meter, I'm talking about an irrigation meter.
No, I understand, in other words, that's, my whole question is, when we're building a home for a new home, right? If the homeowner is expecting an irrigation system, we're not gonna do the work after the home is built and after the grass is laid. We're having to do it ahead of time.
The builder.
And I wish every builder thinks that way.
Right.
You're saying that builders.
It's not a requirement.
Right.
I'm saying,
The owner-
I can't require you to put an irrigation system, period.
I'm not talking about the requirements. What I'm talking about here is the fact that they've got to provide, and as I'm asking if it's okay for these guys to provide a statement that says, I submitted a plan according to the standards, I have certain requirements in here.
That's on the irrigation permit.
Yeah, there's a design, design and install standards. There's like about 10 things on the design and install standards. So I submitted my application for the permit. Then I call in for the inspection for the backflow. Hopefully, if there is going to be an irrigation meter, hopefully we can get that installed before the consumer gets the home. Right? I thought, on this particular instance, I didn't push the issue because it was a $2,000 issue. It wasn't a $700, I had told the consumer, I said, look, the meter's gonna be $600, $700, and it's like I gave my guy a check, or the irrigator told me, no, because you're not gonna be able to connect it. I said, well, we should be able to get it connected, right? So I called the utilities department and all that stuff, and then when they talked to, I don't know if she's there anymore, I forget her name, but it was a $2,000 meter. It was like, whoa, it's a $2,000, meter. So all we did was install the backflow preventer, and I guess we connected it to the domestic. But the consumer had their, they had their system tested and installed before the home was delivered. Right?
Sure.
So having said that, then if there's a certification that needs to be done, where the irrigator says, I have, performed, whether Mr. Guerrero only goes out there and checks for the backflow, because that's what's important to the city, that we're not contaminating the water. He doesn't have to go to do the final inspection. In order for him to issue that the final inspection got done is, I've got my certification from my licensed irrigator that says that he's complied with the TCEQ, and that he's complied with the design that he submitted, except for, or I did everything according to the plan. That's all it took. Here it is. issue a final for the permit. And then when they pull the CO, that's a checklist for the lady that's, pulling out the form that says, was there a final? And then the city can decide to spot check them. It doesn't have to go check every single one because you trust them. And if there's somebody that's coming in that already has a system, that the same system follows again. You wanna be able to connect to the, well, I don't know, are they connecting to
No,
the system?
what we're doing, we started some time back, on the final inspection for plumbing.
Okay.
We check for irrigation, we check for pools, we check for the plumbing, any cross connection possibilities, water heaters, and making sure that they're connected appropriately, every fixture that's inside the house, or gas or non, to make sure that the connections are done right before we can pass a final. After that, all the inspections pass, and then the
CO.
The CO comes in, so that your building final can pass, so.
Yeah, well, to me, the building, the CO, the guy goes in there like if nothing had ever passed, and they're supposed to recheck everything again, right? Just a second pair of, second pair of eyes.
And nowadays, also utilities has a policy, we will not issue a domestic meter to a house unless you have a certificate of occupancy. So now, either how, they have to have a CO before a meter is, you can have a construction meter where the meter is, they allow you to do it while you're in construction and getting all your inspections,
But to transfer the account,
to a final, because if it stays as a temporary construction meter, they'll go in there and turn it
They'll pull
off,
the meter,
or pull the meter.
they'll pull the meter.
You have to have a CO.
the CO or a building final?
Certificate of occupancy.
occupancy.
But a building final is needed before you.
Yes.
No, I understand.
Yes,
That's why I
we
asked
need a
that-
CO
that's why I
nowadays.
asked the question. So is the utilities department integrated with just look up in the computer?
Yes, now we have an integrated system where, what we do is, once we issued it, we put it on a file, electronic file that they can access,
Because it's in
and
the,
they can go either residential, commercial, multifamily, and they'll look it up, okay, is there a CO issue? The people over at the building department, they have access to it, and they can go to that file and punch in that address, and if that CO comes out, they look at the address, they look at, okay, lot and block, they verify that it's a correct legal address, and that's one of their checklists to allow that meter to be installed.
No.
to change the name of the meter.
The whole intent there is to not allow homeowners to go in without finals, and then everything's installed wrong. So then you can't live there because you don't have water.
Right.
So you have to get your finals, which will give you your
No, I
CFO and you get the
understand,
meter.
I understand.
I think that was the intent of.
Right,
the-
just trying to say, with utilities,
So they're not requiring anything from the homeowner, in others, because you can look into the system today, and you can say, okay,
The contract.
130 nowhere, and you can see what inspections have passed or not passed, and there's one that tells you certificate of occupancy, so my question was, are they looking at that system, or are they looking at?
no, they're looking at the actual, a scanned copy of the actual certificate.
Oh, the signed,
Yes, the one that's signed.
not what's entered in the.
Not in our permit system that it shows the status of that account, yes.
It's an
I was
avalanche,
gonna see those, I don't have any problem.
it's an avalanche system that we have at the office. The avalanche system, I believe, is put in 2008,
So,
2010, more or less around there. And what it is that it integrates with the utilities department whenever they need to know if an inspection has passed.
They have access to view
They
that
have
as well.
to view what we do.
Yeah, they'll know if you have a permit on irrigation, plumbing, all that.
so let me ask you a question, how can this, let's assume that the person did not get in other words, that it's it wasn't like in San Isidro where they're requiring, I don't even know if it's a requirement or not, but they might be requiring irrigation systems out there. If a person goes out there and installs an irrigation system after they get their CO and all that other stuff, a weekend job, is there any way for the city to know that they have an irrigation system?
Definitely, because they're supposed to go and get a permit from us.
No.
And
Weekend job.
Even if it's a weekend job, let's say that somebody reports it, you're passing by and you go, hey, somebody's doing that.
Is there a way to know? The only way,
No.
if they have an if they don't have an irrigation meter, it's the quantity of gallons, I guess you could say.
If they're using more water, in your water bill, say, hey, this is a red flag, let's go check to see if this, but that's the only way you could catch it.
Mr. Chair, but on this portion of the discussion, how are we getting to?
No, what I was hoping, was this, that as part of the process of getting an irrigation system, we get a certification from the irrigator that says I've complied with all respects, right? Then,
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me give you a correction there. The backflow, when it's installed, has to have a compliance certification. That certification has to be left there at the construction site, or has to be sent to utilities, showing that that's already compliant
yeah,
with.
that's what I said, there's two inspections. In other words, there's the one to get the backflow, which the city's very concerned with.
Yes.
Right, I mean, that's of utmost, life or death, situation. I need to, the second one on the final, what I'm saying is that final can be a soft inspection through a certification from the irrigator that says I've complied, and the city can spot check those at their whim. They can spot check every single one of them, spot check every once in 10, spot check none of them.
They're checked, all of them are checked.
Okay, all of them are checked. But then, okay, so we have a system in there, and then, if there was an irrigation permit pulled, there's no final issue until that certification comes in, because it's part of the checklist that they have to check all the forms.
Correct.
So if somebody comes in after the fact, they have a system, they tie it into your system, and then never ask for an irrigation system. Is there any way that the city can find out?
There was a point, there was a point
They
only
don't
where
get
the utility department would.
No permit is pulled, it's done in the weekend, it's done in the shadows.
You won't find it.
You
It's
won't.
hard.
It would have to be you who
All my
reports it,
neighbors.
or somebody who reports it,
All my
or the
neighbors.
neighbor reports
Yeah.
it. It
They
has to
have
be by somebody.
irrigation.
And no backflow.
With no
I
backflow.
saw one where a sprinkler system, irrigation system was installed, and they hooked it up to a hose bit directly. They didn't even know, but thank God that now they're using backflow preventers in the hose
The
bit.
vacuum breaker.
Vacuum breaker. But if it wouldn't have been for that, the whole system's not protected.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
those
unless
are-
they took it off.
And those are above ground
They
systems
don't
that they
have to
make.
have.
Can I get some clarification? That compliance that you were talking about that already exists with the licensed irrigator, that's only compliance for the backflow preventer installation, not necessarily the system. per se.
Not this, well, we take a look at the system while they have it and, well, they
If the
install it.
system is in place.
Yes, if the system is in place.
Yeah.
Now, here again, it's called, for us, on a plumbing final, it's also called a CSI, a customer service
Service
inspection.
inspection.
Without that, TECQ will not allow us to go ahead and do an inspection without doing that inspection
CSI.
also. Correct.
Okay, we've got,
4 minutes.
4 minutes left, because Edward needs to,
4
needs to,
seconds.
yeah, needs to take off. So, is that a concern to provide a certification that everything was complied with in all
Yeah,
respects?
here again, that certification is already done.
Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah,
us right
exactly.
now, and the home, like, when I build a home, I need to hire a third party to tell the city that I'm complying with the exchanges. In other words, it's a must thing do. The city doesn't have the systems to check all that other stuff, so we hire a third party inspector to, to check the air exchanges, and it's hanging there at the job site when they go do their building
Right.
final.
And
And here, instead of them having to hire somebody, that they certify that they've done it. Are you guys
Well,
okay with that?
Well,
Not
no,
okay?
it's in the system, Mr. Rick. It's in there where when I certify it, it goes directly to utility department with that Anabella. And after I get there, I do the CSI and I see it there.
No, I understand that.
But the permit number that are issued for your construction goes to everybody else. That same permit number for electrical,
Yeah,
mechanical, plumbing, irrigator,
I understand, 'cause I see
contractors
that
that are
stuff.
doing it all at one time, that's the only way that we will be able to know that it's complying
Well,
with it.
this is where I'm headed.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm asking for a certification from the irrigator that they complied in all respects with what they submitted, so that in the future, when somebody comes in and they're wanting they're wanting a certification on their system, they're providing the same paperwork.
Correct.
So are you guys Is that a problem for you guys?
When they go for the inspection, they get an inspection report.
I understand that you're doing your work.
Is that a problem?
But
That would be.
No, I understand that you're doing your work. I'm not questioning that you're doing your work, or maybe I'm.
But I guess the question.
The question is for the irrigators. The question is for the irrigators. In other words, for the irrigators, not for city staff, for the irrigators. You're gonna do your job, because you're gonna do your job, and you wanna make sure that, you know, we're not contaminating the system, and we're checking the whole deal. But from the irrigators themselves, is there a problem for getting that final? In other words, when you request a final, you're saying, okay, I'm requesting my final inspection. I've complied with all the, requirements and all that other stuff, except for this, because I modified it, or we're all in,
Well,
is that a problem?
I think we need more irrigators here to be able to answer that. But, but tying it to the final inspection, I don't think that's such a great idea. I mean, I think it should be tied to the issuance of the irrigation meter. Because typically when we do irrigations.
Yeah, well, it's a final.
Yeah.
It's a final. In other words, it might be, it's a final. It may impact a certificate of occupancy, or it may not. Just when you're requesting your final.
Yeah.
If it's a new construction, it might impact the CO, because it's got, I've got another component that's going into the system. This triggers, a final on this in order for me to be able to issue a certificate of occupancy.
That's correct what he's saying, because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that the current ordinance says that the owner is allowed to do the irrigation system, but when you're building a house, you don't need the irrigation meter or irrigation inspection approved to get a CFO. You can put that aside, and then he comes back later on, doesn't do the double check valve, or does something that doesn't comply, and that's where it gets out. It should be like, if you start with an irrigation system while the new home's being built, you have to close it out, or else you don't get a CFO. Or you don't get a CFO.
Yeah. Well, let's leave that for the next, I guess for the next meeting. We need to get more irrigators, because we need to wrap up.
So we want to get more irrigators for the next meeting on July the 11th.
And then, Roland, if you can issue us the irrigation ordinance.
I will send the irrigation more.
It'd be nice to establish the goal for the next meeting.
The goal, well, that would be the last meeting.
But I mean, what's the?
Oh no, one more meeting after that, right?
Yeah, I mean, so just something.
Yeah, one more meeting after that.
So we know, okay, you know what?
Is it okay if we get that ordinance and take out all the typos and present it at the next, get somebody to look at all the typos?
Well,
That's what we're, that's what the goal is.
You want to type through one? I'll send it to my daughter.
Like, she doesn't have anything to do.
No, she doesn't, she has a lot to do, but. Senator Edwards, the English major.
You wanna make a motion on what irrigators?
Well, do we want to do another part to that, to see how we're
Okay,
gonna?
right now I have more irrigation for the line and the irrigation ordinance.
Where's your meeting gonna be at?
And I still think we need to ask, if Rhea can, I know it's short notice, but when we get ready for the next meeting, if you can send us a report.
No, I'm serious, I'll give her
You want to get a copy?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, no, hold on. Yeah, because he doesn't want to be tempted either with raising anybody's water fees.
I know the secretary.
I can see it.
That they're paying, and they're posting pretty much every.
Okay, guys, he wants to get it on the system.
Yeah, I need to take, what is it that we want for next? You want Rita to bring you either a report or show up? You want the irrigation ordinance be emailed?
Roland, the RIA, he still owes us what he owes pending on the previous motion.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but on that report that he brings back, to see what kind of information he has on those 3,000 meters.
Accounts.
Yeah, accounts, and then really we should be looking at both commercial, because that's what our FILA said, that we need to not just limit it to those accounts, but on all those accounts. In other words, what information he has on those. Does he have like, the majority of them are this size yard, or does he have any kind of, characteristics of those?
Well, maybe he might have size of lot, but
Yeah, it was what
that's based
characteristics-
on the domestic.
On those, does he have any characteristics that he can just pull out of a report, get his GIS guy, not GIS, but his IT guy?
But Mr. Chair, in those 3,000 meters, are we talking about just irrigation or both?
Yeah, they're just.
All irrigation, because it's 3,000 residential.
Is,
Okay, go ahead.
that's the last meeting or the second to the last meeting?
No, second to the last week.
Mr. Fila, well, he would need to be here, of course, but then also maybe engineering department, I'm thinking, on the streets, just to find out what all
Well,
the
I had
objections
invited-
are and all
I
that.
had invited Mr. No, Reyes, Mr.
Santos.
Yeah, he's a right-of-way manager, and well, I guess, I mean, he's the one that actually approves of the right-of-way permits, and he knows what goes on in the right-of-way.
Yeah,
So, I don't think he could make it today.
that's a good idea.
Maybe he can make it at the last
Engineering
meeting.
department, and then,
Because he worked with the engineering
Mr. Freeland
department, so he
delegate.
knows that.
Okay, so you wanted more of the staff to be notified?
You want staff to give more direction to the committee?
no,
or-
I'm just saying, because we might come up with a solution, and say, hey, guys, that's not solving the problem we're trying to solve. Because the whole point of the revisiting the irrigation ordinance is to solve
That
the
problem
perceived problem
of
of,
the over irrigation.
yeah, the water, that's the thing, the roads,
Like,
that's
yeah.
really the trigger.
You went at the
roads.
last meeting, I think the staff consensus, Orfila and Ria were saying hike up the prices. Like, they were like,
When you raise the price,
we really don't have too many options.
it's gonna
hike the
control
prices.
itself. That was a
The
general
consensus.
consensus. In other words,
That's
which is what I've said at a couple of meetings. It's kind of like people follow their pocketbook. I don't care, whether you have, $1 million, you're still, at some point, you
I
follow
don't
your
know if
pocketbook.
it's necessarily raising the prices, but it's maybe putting a maximum limit and then charging extra if you exceed the
Yeah,
maximum.
you have a base.
Yeah, you're not raising the prices on the entire city of Laredo, you're raising the prices on those that exceed the maximum.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
said a
I
maximum.
still
I think
think
that
that
was
it's
the
gotta be
general,
in
yeah.
conjunction
Yeah,
with
but-
some incentives to zero escape.
Correct.
In other words, okay, you've got an increased rate for increased volume, but hey, guys, we've got some incentives so that you don't need that much water. In that transitionary time, so we need to get more.
And from experience, when you raise the rates, it's just one of those that drops and then it goes back.
Yeah.
Once people realize, okay, they adjust their costs.
And you get away from regulating and let the owner regulate himself.
I've seen
He'll-
that.
Self-regulating.
They raise the rates and they stop using it, but then
It starts again, like the SUVs, so it gas, and then they
Yeah.
downsize, and then
That's right.
the gas goes back down, and then they
everybody buying SUVs.
So we'll entertain a motion, and that little, I think we need
The
to
design.
talk about what we can do in those front yards. If we can possibly not have,
I took a class in San Antonio about 3 years ago, and they have 27 irrigators on staff
okay,
enforcing. If your yard system is on, and if the water runs more than 15 feet down the curb, you get fined.
the entire building.
That's water conservation. That's their water conservation plan.
I don't know if
Better than that.
if they're done any,
But a water-
Well, I mean,
We need to.
Yeah, you get fined.
that's.
That's part of the recommendation, maybe to see if we can move a motion and recommend council to increase staff so they can,
Well,
so they can.
You say the way to pay for it, and the way to pay
We
for it.
can make that recommendation, but I don't.
And
That's always a difficult- That's always a difficult
You're
one.
never gonna get me to agree to add more staff, I'm sorry.
In that case of San
That's
Antonio,
more taxes.
was that for conservation of water or for erosion of the street?
Let him shadow you.
Don't call me, I don't want to talk to you.
I think it's
A motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Second. I don't think there's.
I don't want to talk to you.